What's up, Nine Tails fans? So here's the deal. I got one of my buddies and a subscriber asked about jerkbaits. So this video is going to be just jerkbait fishing simplified. I'm going to keep it as simple as we can, give you some tips, tactics, gear that I use, and then we'll talk about some other stuff afterwards, and we'll throw in some footage too. So he specifically asked about soft plastic jerkbaits, so we'll kind of start there. So there's really only two types of soft plastics that I use for jerkbaiting. So we've got the Zoom Super Fluke, which is probably the most common. One of my partners makes another fluke style bait. It's a little smaller profile if you look at that versus the Super Fluke. So when they're a little bit more finicky, I might throw something a little bit smaller. And then the stick bait. Senko's, this is a pig stick from Crazy Bait Company. So these are the types of lures or types of plastics that I use for soft plastic jerkbaits. So rigging them up is pretty simple. I use an extra wide gap hook, and you just rig it up like you would any Texas rig. So down through the nose. I put it down far enough to where I can pull that knot hole all the way in. And then you just rig it through the middle and into the gap that is in between there. So that sits in there, stays nice and weedless, but doesn't inhibit the fish from taking it. So when the fish comes up behind it and grabs it, they simply just push it down the hook and the hook comes out, right? So really simple, effective way to keep it weedless, and it swims really nice. I rig the smaller fluke style bait up just like that. I rig the Senko up just like that. So no difference in rigging for any of them. Now, I guess the biggest question is, when do you use them? I'll just tell you as simply as I can. I use them in clear water. I think a jerkbait in murkier water, it just doesn't work as well. It doesn't entice the bites like it does in the clearer water. I'd say if you got 3 to 5 feet of visibility, you can throw a jerkbait and be pretty successful. These are really meant for surface. So if you have a shad spawn, any kind of baitfish style spawn, and ripping it real fast across the surface of the water is just key, because they have a really nice, unique back and forth motion. They swim really well. They look really well. The tails, everything, just all the action just anticipates or promotes a good bite. So, but if you find a school that's deeper and you can't get them to bite on anything else, you can throw a little nail weight inside of this thing, get it to slowly sink a little faster. You still want it to sink slow because you want it to stay in that strike zone fast. You don't want it just zipping right by them. Unless they're really aggressive, then maybe you'll get some reaction bites that way. But you don't want it just to go sink to the bottom, right? So add an appropriate amount of weighted nail weight in there, and you can fish this in deeper water, 4, 5, 6 feet of water. I use the Senko style stick baits a lot more for dock skipping, stuff like that. Just trying to get it into those places that not everybody's going to throw to, especially when it's hot outside. When it's hot outside, they need that cover, whether it's overhanging branches, docks, boat launches, boat lifts, stuff like that. Anywhere where they can get some shade, they're going to hang out when it's really hot. If they're not out in that deeper water, they're going to be under that cover. And to be able to sling one of these underneath the dock, you're going to get a lot of bites that way. We've had a lot of success this year during the tournament skipping these things under docks, and it's so much fun. Another time I'll use it is when it's post spawn and they're guarding fry. You swim this through a little pool of fry, you're gonna light them up. It's a lot of fun. I caught some really good fish this year post spawn on them too. So that's kind of the gist of the what and the how for the soft plastics. For the hard plastic jerkbaits, I have really 5 main ones that I throw. So this is a Lucky Craft pointer. I'll throw that. It's a little heavier, really unique action. They're awesome. I use the KVD Strike Kings a lot. I use the Smithwick Rogues. This one is wrapped in a crank wrap in white crappie. Really makes these baits come alive, because the colors that you can get these in anymore, when you can find them, are pretty crappy. And this is the Pro Blue in the crank wrap. Again, another Smithwick. I throw the Rapala Ripstop a lot. I really like this. I like the tail, just a different look to them, but I throw that one a lot. And then one I just started throwing this year, which I really like, are the Gary Yamamotos. These things are awesome. These dive about 4 feet, this particular one, between 3 and 4 feet. But I'll use those a lot. And you can use them in the same type of conditions as those. You know, a lot of people will ask me what time of the year to throw a jerkbait. What I'm going to tell you is you can throw a jerkbait as long as there's open water. You can catch fish on a jerkbait. What you do differently is if the water's colder, you fish it slower. If it's warmer, you fish it faster. That's as simple as I can possibly make it. When it's, you know, early spring, you know, the ice came off not too long ago, you can still catch plenty of fish on a jerkbait, but you've got to slow it way down. I'm talking twitch and just let it pause for, you know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It's painful, guys. It's painful. I know it is. I hate it, but it produces really, really good fish. And then when it heats up, when the water starts heating up, you can really start giving that thing a lot of rips with very little pause in between. You know, midsummer, stuff like that, all, you know, twitch, pause, and just leave it there for, you know, half a second and just keep going at it. What you're really aiming for is that reaction bite. And they pound it. So from a gear standpoint, what I throw it on this particular rod, specifically. So this is actually a crankbait rod by FX Custom Rods, one of my partners. This is the Extreme Angler series. It's a Gen 1 rod. We have the Gen 2s available now, so you need to go check them out at www.fxcustomrods.com. If you haven't checked them out yet, you need to go check them out. One of the best rods, absolutely the best rod in the $150 price range. I'll put it up against any $300 rod any day of the week. This is a medium heavy, moderate fast. Actually, I think it's just a medium. Yeah, medium action, moderate fast tip, 7'1", and I throw it on a 7.3-1 KVD Quantum reel. I really like this rod for jerkbaiting. You know, it's not crazy long, and you know, my boat sits a little bit lower to the water, so I slap the water a little bit with the rod. So really, what I prefer is like a 6'9" or a 6'6", but that's not always an option. But I've learned to really be able to work this rod really well. And the key to the retrieve on the jerkbait is ensuring that you're snapping the slack of the line and not the lure. So all I mean by that is when you're snapping the slack of the line, you're allowing the rod and the twitch to impart the most action you can possibly impart on a jerkbait. You want that really just aggressive side-to-side motion, right? If you can get this sucker to turn around on a jerk and face whatever's chasing it, you'd be amazed at how many more strikes that'll elicit, because it's, you know, in defensive mode or whatever you want to call it. But man, it makes them angry and they'll smack it. The problem is when you reel the slack up and you're twitching the actual lure, all you're doing is barely moving it, but you're pulling it too far out of the strike range every time. You want that thing to sit in the sweet spot as long as you can. Per jerk, you're only moving this thing, you know, 5 or 6 inches. And that's what you want. You want it to stay in that strike zone as long as you can. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I start, when I start my twitching with the jerkbait, I start with the rod at about 3 o'clock. So pointed basically straight out in front of me. I smack it down to 6 o'clock once or twice, and immediately lift the rod up to 12 o'clock. What that does is it allows that slack to come out and keep that side-to-side motion on a jerkbait. We talked about when to throw it from a clear water, cloudy water. They don't produce a lot of fish when the water's really doesn't have much visibility. Not saying you still can't catch them. I've still caught them in muddy water in really a big algae spawn type of situation, but it's not needed. There's other things that you can throw that'll be much more productive. So I'm going to tell you, keep it to clear water. It's best if there's some chop on the water to kind of break that silhouette up, and you'll be amazed at how many more fish you'll catch throwing one of those throughout a day than anything else. When the conditions are right, I'm telling you, a jerkbait is the way to go. You can always look up articles online. I don't pretend to know everything about them, so don't take what I have as gospel, but I tell you what works for me, what's produced a lot of fish for me over the years, and I invite you to try it. The other thing I'll tell you is don't give up on them. Don't make 4 or 5 casts and then quit. Commit to a day of just going out and throwing a bunch of different jerk baits, different color patterns, different sizes, different styles, soft, hard. Give it time, and you'll understand why this is such a fun way to fish for me. So that kind of covers your jerk baits. There isn't a lot to it. Hopefully that helps somebody a little bit. The other stuff I want to talk about is what's coming up the rest of this season, next season, stuff like that. So we've got 2 more tournaments this year, Umatilla, Oregon, and Tri-Cities here in Washington. And then the Bassmaster Team Championship qualifiers will be over. And hopefully, by some stroke of luck, I'm able to qualify. I think I'm too far out of the points at this point to be able to get in. But this year is all really about practice for me and getting better and learning, and I've done a ton of that. So I'm really looking forward to what next season holds. We've added another tournament for next year. The schedule isn't finalized yet, but it's getting closer. We got, I think, 6 tournaments total next year, so I'm really excited. I think I'm going to have a lot better year next year, and I just can't wait for what next year holds. We've recently added a couple more partners to the Nine Toes team with Lure Lock. If you guys haven't checked them out yet, it's a really ingenious way to store your hard baits. So you need to check them out, www.lurelock.com. I don't have any special codes. I don't make any money. You don't have to say I referred you. Just go check them out and see what they have to offer. It's pretty cool. And then Crank Wrap, same thing. They make wraps like this white crappie wrap that's super realistic, as realistic as you can get. You can dress up old beat up ones, change the color on the fly. They install in about 30 seconds. And then they cover a wide gambit of different hard lures, whether it's the Strike King line for baits or jerk baits or the wiggle warts, spoons, all kinds of stuff. So they have a lot of stuff available. So go check them out at crankwraps.com. You will not regret it. They're about $2 to do a lure. Each pack runs somewhere in that $13 range, and each pack covers 6 to 8 lures, just depending on what you got going on. So next year, again, I'm excited about what next year's going to hold. Hopefully, all my partners stay with me through next year, and they've been awesome this year to be able to stick with me through even some of my struggles, and I greatly appreciate everything everybody's done for me this year. So I'm really looking forward to it. Next tournament up is Umatilla in about 10 days. So I'm really excited. That's just a single-day tournament, but I'm fishing a body of water I've never fished before. And we're going to do a little video about that down the road, about how to attack a body of water you've never fished, what to look for, depending on the time of year, stuff like that. And so that one will be coming up maybe in a few weeks once I get one fully recorded. But guys, I appreciate all the support. I hope some of this stuff helps you guys. I'm going to drop some footage in right now. Then you try and repeat that over and over again, and if they keep biting it that way, well, you got yourself a pattern worked out. So there's a bunch of different jerk baits out there. Everybody makes one. So personally for me, I fish 3 different jerk baits, and that's generally enough to cover just about any situation. I run the Yamamoto, I run the KVDs, and then I run the Smithwick Rogues. I really like the action of the Rogues. I think they pop really well. I think they have some really good side-to-side motion. The KVDs look really good. They're a little bit bigger, so if I want a little bit bigger profile, I'll throw those. But I really like the resistance that I feel on the Smithwicks. It just lets me know that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And I've literally gone all day during a tournament throwing nothing but a jerkbait, and it is brutal on the body. It takes a lot out of you to do this all day. But once again, technique is important. So you don't want to reel it up and then jerk it, and reel it up and jerk it, and reel it up and jerk it. What you're trying to do is just jerk literally just the slack out of the line. That's it. And when I reel, I'm just trying to pick up just a little bit of the slack. That's it, just a little bit of the slack. and then I'm popping the slack. That gets that jerkbait to side to side, side to side. Sometimes it'll even turn around backwards on itself. And when it does that and there's a fish around, oh good lord. They can't stand it. Cannot stand it. Like I said, this isn't really jerkbait water, just because it's so dark. But you can still catch them on it. It's a lot harder. They really need to be able to see it or feel it. If you run it across them, by all means, they're probably going to eat it. But it's just not ideal. We'll go over some soft plastic ones and some other tips here later on. We'll put this thing to work a little bit more. We're going to go back to the buzz bait. Can't catch one slipping through here. I'll be back.